in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's the 6th of September 2014. This is UCY.tv with the Solvinur Event. How you doing, guys? So I've been away a while, and I'm probably gonna stay away for a while from this quote-unquote movement or truth movement, whatever you want to call it, because it stresses me. So, you know, you could say I'm on vacation or something like that. But to get so much input about vaccines, about the bad things that are going on, and most of all what bugs me a lot is that there are these claims made like the Pacific Ocean is dead because of Fukushima, and I'm like, yeah, right, you know, where is the source of your information? What basis do you have to make such claims? And that's not the only thing, you know, but so many people are just parroting what they hear, and even parroting mainstream media, and I'm like, you know, that's not why there's, in my view anyway, supposed to be an quote-unquote alternative media. This media has been done before 9/11 by Bill Cooper, for instance. Has there been a lot of 9/11 on the radio lately, guys? Because we're coming up to that date again. It's what made me go on the path of doing investigation, figuring out what was going on. I noticed while doing that investigation that there were many things that people point to on that specific day and say, well, that can't be, and they started doing their investigation. And the two things that sprang out to me were the World Trade Center buildings coming down, all three of them. And that was like, what's going on here? I was still, you know, very naive at the time, very unknowing. And the basic education that I had in steel made me suspicious of what was going on there. By the way, if you want to join the Making Radio today, you can. You just contact me at Solvinur on Skype, SOLVINUR, and I'll get you on the air if you want to talk about anything. Doesn't have to be on 9/11 or the Mahabharata, which we'll get into later. So, you know, I'm thinking like to talk a little bit about it. You know, I probably will bore you guys. You know, you've probably all done your own investigation into that day and what happened. But it's beginning to feel like the USS Liberty. You know, it's so long ago, and there's probably still some young people that were not informed about what went wrong all that day. So, but the things that sprang out to me were the buildings coming down, and also after the second plane hit the second tower, I was like, this is not good, because there's supposed to be a defensive system run by NORAD that should have kicked into action even before the first plane hit. You know, they should have at least get the second plane, because it was off course and they knew it. And here in Netherlands, a couple of years later, there was a show on television about exactly that, and they claimed that that it only takes like 10 or maximum 15 minutes for Dutch fighter airplanes to rise up in the air and escort a plane that is off course, and find out what's going on, trying to get contact, try to get visual of the cockpit, whatever it takes to find out why this plane is not going its course. So, you know, the whole NORAD thing is one big red flag. What stood out for me also, because of my education in steel, is how the towers disappeared. I don't call it a collapse. It's not a collapse. They disappeared in 11 seconds, and that's quite amazing. Those are 4 soccer fields long, disappearing in 11 seconds. You know, that's amazingly fast. People in the Netherlands have no clue how big the buildings are in the United States. That's what struck me as well when I came to Los Angeles. I was walking in the city there, and I'm looking up at these buildings, and I'm like, whoa, this is not going to fall on me, right? It's so huge, unbelievable that they can even build that, you know? So, of course, there's a lot of other things, like Flight 93. You know, there's no evidence. Flight 77, no evidence of crashes. When I saw the Flight 93 crash site, I was like, what's this? All you see is a couple of white dots and a hole in the ground, and that's it. You know, that doesn't look like a crash site at all. Same goes for Pentagon. I think it was pilots for 9/11 Truth that came out with the idea that there was a plane in the neighborhood, but it actually flew over the Pentagon instead of in it. And that makes sense. And of course, the released video of the Pentagon crash didn't show an airplane. That's so funny, right? And they came out and it says, airplane hit World Trade Center. No, airplane hit the Pentagon. Look at this video. And you go look, and there's no freaking airplane there. Like, how do you even come up with a title like that, you know? Yeah. So if you guys want to chip in about what you found out on 9/11, please do so. I myself gave a presentation in the Netherlands about it in the Cultural Center. I had saved all kinds of video that was on the internet from amateurs and mainstream media, and I put those all together and showed the inconsistencies to the people. It was a 2-hour show, I guess. I would show a video of a couple of minutes long, and then I would comment on it. I would expose the lies or the contradictions that have been put out there that are supposed to tie to the video shown. Yeah. So, if you want to chip in, just contact me at Solvinur, Solvinur at Skype, and I'll get you on the air. You don't have to be on 9/11, but you can talk about anything you like. If you go to ucy.tv, that's ucy.tv, mouse over shows, click on any of them, and you will end up in a page which has a chat room. And there's already some people there. 37001 is there. Cooper seems to be alive. What's up, buddy? Hecty, Way, and JJ, Joe, and Vincent, Iota, and 2 Anons. Welcome, everybody. Anon says, 37001 says, long before 9/11 in person would be hard-pressed to show examples of where the government wasn't lying through its teeth about anything. Yeah, Well, what about USS Liberty? You know, there's probably a lot of things that they lied about. Maya Brussels talked a lot about that stuff. Watergate scandal, I mean, there's so much going on. That's what I found strange on my own account, is that I knew there was stuff going on, you know, starting with JFK, you know, everybody, even in the Netherlands, knows about that. And, it doesn't make you think that there is an overarching control going on. You know, just this one incident of JFK, for instance. But if you find out that there was so much more, then you see that there is an overarching control in the government. You know, it's not the people in the government that are in control, those are just puppets. And that's what people who aren't awake fail to see, even though things may go quote-unquote wrong. You know, like the levee blowing up at, the dike blown out at New Orleans, for instance. Yeah. I saw some pictures of New Orleans after it got flooded. People floating, dead people floating in the water, and that was gruesome. Yeah. So those aren't accidents. I dare say most of those are not quote-unquote accidents. They are made to happen. All right. It ties a lot to what I call, instead of everybody else, they use a different order, you know, just like grammar, logic, rhetoric. I call it always solution, problem, reaction. Because it starts with the solution. The solution is what the people that are in control have in mind, where they want to go. And then when they have this idea about where they want to go, they create a problem on which they get an expected reaction, and then they can come up with their solution. So it's a circle, more or less. But it starts always with the solution. Katrina, yeah. Levees busting during Katrina was definitely shady, says 3701. Yeah. A friend of mine did a lot of research in there, and I checked a claim he made that there was actually explosions going on there, and there are indeed some witnesses that will verify that. That's when the levee was blown. You guys call that levee, right? That's the same as a dike, right? I'm not quite sure. So, yeah, that about things going on. You know, I expect you guys already know, so I won't bore you with all of that. We're going to go into some ancient mythology, some of it, and I'm thinking only a very, very, very small part of it can actually be seen as history. Most of it, though, has to do with quote-unquote gods, you know, that represent either nature forces, but they can also represent actions taken by humans or emotions that humans have. Alright, so we'll do that, and at the top of the hour we'll play some Poker Face from Freedom Palooza. That's the last song from 2012. I'll have to find a new video or audio for next week. So I can play something at the top of the hour, you know, just to have a little break. Yeah, bikes 3701, yeah. We got a lot of them. We got more bikes than people here in the Netherlands. It is estimated that every person has 2 bikes. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah. A lot of bike shops, because they break down and they need to get fixed. But we don't have as many bikes as China, though. Yeah, China being a bit bigger and all. Yeah. So, while I roll a ciggy, let's get into this. It's section XL. What's that? X is 10, L is 50, right? Are we at section 60 already? Yeah. That's also strange, right? They're using Roman numerals to sort out the Vedic text. By the way, I've read some of the Sanskrit texts for as far, you know, as they are readable, because they're just symbols that I have no clue what they mean. But there was a word-for-word translation given by the translator for the symbols regarding these verses in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And these verses are numbered. And what I found out is that those ancient scriptures, claims about how old they are differ. I tend to go with 5,000 to 7,000 years. These verses are numbered in Sanskrit, and you can see the Sanskrit numbers, and they really, really look a lot like the Arab numbers that we use, 1, 2, 3, to 9. Yeah. I also saw a video. I'll paste that in the chat. Let me get it for you guys, because that's really interesting. Should have done this before the start of the radio show, of course, but here it is. Alright, pause that. It's from Gresham College, sponsored by the City of London Corporation. Alright, that ought to tell you something also. The City of London Corporation. Yeah. They go together with Washington, D.C. and the Vatican. Those are separate states. Alright? So, that's kind of strange that these people are actually sponsoring this. And it's a little bit about Vedic mathematics. And he's using a very strange way to calculate a multiplication. And it's really, really nice. I mean, wow, like, how is that even possible, you know? He puts 2 numbers on the board and then uses a blackboard to draw a couple of lines, and then from the lines he deduces what the outcome of the multiplication is. It's really amazing. So take a look at this when you have the time. I put that in the chat. And check that out. That's really amazing. It might be good for your children also to know how to do that. It's easy, and that's why it's so amazing. It's really easy. Yeah. So Vedic mathematics. That's a whole topic one could get into. They there's another way to do multiplication, and it's more or less using a binary code also. I've got a video of that somewhere, but I don't know where, so I'm not going to go get it for you. But a YouTube search on Vedic mathematics should also get you there. Post the title, he says. Hold on, guys. Need to get that one back then. So you can also get that. Copy this. Put that in the chat for Vince. There you go, Vince. So this other video that you will get by YouTube using Vedic mathematics, it's in there somewhere. They show how the Egyptians also used this system. And it's probably so that the Egyptians got it from India. That's also a reason why I think that India Sanskrit texts, these Mahabharata and stuff, in the Bhagavad Gita, is older than Egypt. Alright? It's probably not that the Indians got it from the Egyptians. You know, the funny thing about these Egyptians is that, you know, the so-called, not alternative, but mainstream people that call themselves Egyptologists, they themselves will even say, well, when the Egyptians came, they were fully developed. You know? So where did that come from? You don't start out fully developed, coming out of a stone age, you know? So that's also a reason why I think, and this is also according to Indian myth itself, that the Egyptians actually came from India. Alright? And they also took the mathematics with them. The Egyptian mathematics, the old way, is the same, or has ties to, how the ancient Indians do math. So that's very interesting. Check out that video I posted. It's very nice. Anon says he watched that video a little while ago. Yeah, it has some tricks on to multiply quick. Yeah, it's really amazing. How does it even work like that? You know, it's the same kind of amazement I get when I look at a triangle, 3, 4, 5 right angle triangle. I'm like, whoa, how can that be? How can that crooked side be exactly 5? Or a 5, 12, 13 one? It's the same. Now, how can that be exactly numbers? Exactly, not 12.1 or 13.1. No, exactly 5, 12, 13. So it's strange to me. It strikes me as strange because, you know, they've been spouting this idea that the universe sprang into being for no reason, and it's all just happenstance. It's all just an accident, you know. Well, if it was an accident, you wouldn't expect 3, 4, 5 and 5, 12, 13 triangles. Alright, enough about that. So, let's get into section 60, I guess. From Astika Parva. Saunaka said, O son of Sutta, I desire to know the reason why the illustrious Rishi, whom thou hast named Jaratkuru, came to be so-called on Earth? How did he get here? How did he get here? I behoove thee to tell us the etymology of the name Jarat Karu. Oh, really? They had etymology also in those ancient times? Interesting. Didn't know that. You know, this is just like last week. It translated as a car. What? A car? Don't they mean chariot? You know, pulled on by horses? So etymology, yeah, that interested me even before I woke up. It's still interesting to me because I try to figure out what language is. And then etymology has to do with where do words come from. Like the English word wet, for instance, it's tied to the most old language that we have been able to identify. Wet was used in the oldest language to mean water. You see the etymological tie between wet and water also, you see. In Dutch it's also water. It also ties to that word wet, which is water. There are many words also in Sanskrit that have a tie to the English language, like Paradesh. It's a Sanskrit word, Paradesh. Paradesh. It means paradise, you know. So there's a lot of Sanskrit words that get back to English. So Dan in the chat says, Tirha claimed that he found the sutras after years of studying the Vedas, a set of sacred ancient Hindu texts. Yeah. However, Vedas do not contain any of the Vedic mathematics sutras. Well, that seems odd. That seems odd. Which sutra do these Vedic mathematics come into then? Yeah. And as I've been told, the Vedas are all of the ancient Sanskrit texts. Because the word Veda means knowing. That's why. The word Veda ties to the word Vikka, or wise. Do you hear the etymological ties there, guys? Veda, Vikka, wise, wisdom. Alright, let's pick this up where we were. Sauti said, Jara is said to mean waste, and Karu implies huge. Alright, so huge waste. This Rishi's body had been huge, and he gradually reduced it by severe ascetic penances. For the same reason, O Brahmanas, the sister of Vasuki was called Jarat Karu. The virtuous Sanauka, when he heard this, smiled, and addressing Ugrasrava said, It is even so. Sanauka then said, I have heard all that thou hast before recited. I desire to know how Ashtika was born. Sauti, on hearing these words, began to relate according to what was written in the Sastra. Sastra just means writings, scribbles. Sauti said, Vasuki, desirous of bestowing his sister upon the Rishi Jaratkaru, and remember that from last week, guys, he was supposed to be married to a woman with the same name, gave the snakes the necessary orders. But days went on, yet that wise Muni of rigid vows, deeply engaged in ascetic devotions, did not seek for a wife. The high-souled Rishi, engaged in studies and deeply devoted to asceticism, his vital seed under full control, fearlessly wandered over the whole earth and had no wish for a wife. Afterwards, once upon a time, there was a king. That's like a fairy tale, right? O Brahmanas, of the name of Parikshit, born of the race of the Kauravas. Yeah. Now it's a race. Kauravas is a race. Huh. I thought that was a family name. Apparently not. And like his great-grandfather Pandu of old, he was of mighty arms, the first of all bearers of bows in battle. Huh? So you see, there's a first of all bearers of bows in battles. That means that before that time, they were doing battles without bows. And that shows, you know, the evolution going on. There's a lot of talk about so-called advanced technologies with regards to these ancient cultures. Like, you know, how did they build the pyramids? And we don't know, so there must have been advanced technologies. Alright, that's a fallacy. That doesn't follow. You know, that's a logical leap which is not correct. You can't just claim that. Just because you don't know doesn't mean that there has to have been advanced technologies. Alright, so I'm on the more of the side that, you know, we came out of the Stone Age. What do you expect? You know? And here you see, yeah, he is the first of all bearers of bows in battle. Alright? And he was fond of hunting. And the monarch wandered about, hunting deer and wild boars and wolves and buffaloes and various other kinds of wild animals. One day, having pierced a deer with a sharp arrow and slung his bow on his back, he penetrated into the deep forest, searching for the animal here and there. Like the illustrious Rudra, that's another name for Shiva, himself of old pursuing in the heavens, bow in hand, the deer which was sacrifice, itself turned into that shape after the piercing. No deer that was pierced by Parikshit had ever escaped in the wood with life. This deer, however, wounded as before, fled with speed, as the proximate cause of the king's attainment to heaven. Alright, I don't know what to make of that. Blah, blah. Yeah, Iota says in the chat, sages wrote the Soma preparation in mathematical codex. Yeah. Well, that's odd, right, Iota? I mean, what is the translation for the word Soma? You know, we don't have a translation for the word Soma because we still don't know what it exactly is. And there have been Soma presses found, or at least that's the claim. Well, these are the presses with which Soma was made, but what they were pressing is unknown. And that's kind of odd, because there is a whole big part of the Mahabharata which is about this Soma, but there's still no clue as to what it is. Continuing, and the deer that Parikshit, the king of men, had pierced was lost to his gaze, and drew the monarch far away into the forest. And fatigued and thirsty he came across a Muni in the forest, seated in a cow pen, and drinking to his fill the froth oozing out of the mouths of calves sucking the milk of their dams. Yeah, Iota says it's a tincture. Yeah, that's probably true that it is a fluid. You know, the Soma presses would also come to that conclusion. You know, the use of these presses would make you think that it's some kind of fluid. Probably from plants. And approaching him hastily, continuing, The monarch, hungry and fatigued, and raising his bow, asked that Muni of rigid vows, saying, O Brahmana, I am King Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu. A deer pierced by me has been lost. Have you seen it? But that Muni, observing then the vow of silence, spoke not unto him a word. And the king, in anger thereupon, placed upon his shoulder a dead snake, taking it up with the end of his bow. The Muni suffered him to do it without protest, and he spoke not a word, good or bad. And the king, seeing him in that state, cast off his anger and became sorry. And he returned to his capital, but the Rishi continued in the same state. The forgiving Muni, knowing that the monarch, who was a tiger amongst the kings, was true to the duties of his order, cursed him not, though insulted. That tiger among monarchs, that foremost of Bharata's race, so Bharata is a king, also did not know that the person whom he had so insulted was a virtuous rishi. It was for this that he had so insulted him. That rishi had a son by the name of Shringin, of tender years, gifted with great energy, deep in ascetic penances, severe in his vows, very wrathful, and difficult to be appeased. At times he worshipped with great attention and respect his preceptor, seated with ease on his seat, and ever engaged in the good of creatures. Yeah. And commanded by his preceptor, he was coming home when, O best of Brahmanas, a companion of his, a rishi's son named Krisa, in a playful mood laughingly spoke unto him. Right, so not Krishna, but Krisa, Krisa. And Shringin, wrathful and like unto poison itself, hearing these words in reference to his father, blazed up in rage. And Krishi said, Be not proud, O Singrin, for ascetic as thou art and possessed of energy, thy father bears on his shoulder a dead snake. Henceforth, speak not a word to sons of rishis, like ourselves, who have knowledge of the truth. Alright, that's interesting, right? They say that speak not a word to sons of rishis like ourselves who have knowledge of the truth. What exactly are they talking about here? What truth do they mean, you know? Dan came up with a definition of soma in the chat room. An intoxicating juice from a plant of disputed identity that was used in ancient India as an offering to the gods and as a drink of immortality by worshippers in Vedic ritual and worshipped in personified form as a Vedic god. Yeah. Some have made the claim, which I don't think is correct, but you know, who knows, because we don't know. But some have made the claim that it's a juice from mushrooms. Alright, and that's not a plant. So, but I'm thinking that it's probably some kind of plant indeed. Anon gave Dan B. Cooper gave a link earlier in the chat. 3701 says, I don't know about that last link. Dan, the writer, gives examples of Vedic math, but no abstract algebra examples to counter. There is an abstract mathematical concept at play, or else it wouldn't work. They wouldn't teach you this in the West until your later years of math. Excuse me, I'm not exactly sure. Do they even teach Vedic math at all? It wasn't taught to me. Yeah. Alright. If you have anything more to say about that, I'm not quite sure what you mean, Anon. 3701. I'll read whatever you type. He also says, the Rubik cube has an abstract algebra concept at play. Concepts, even. We normally don't teach these to youngers in the West. No, we don't. That's also kind of strange, right? Yeah, indeed, Vince. Soma also comes back in Brave New World. You know, that shows you that he also knew about the existence of the Vedas. Blah, blah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it, Dan says, so if it healed all sickness, then why did India have so much smallpox and leprosy? So first of all, I don't know if it does heal sickness. And second of all, Dan, you got to keep in mind that in India they have a really, really strange way of thinking about sickness. You know, they think that if you become sick, well, that's God's way of punishing you. You know, there's some Christian denominations that also have that idea. That's really sick, you know. That's the idea of karma, that is. They say, well, it's your karma that you got leper. And, you know, we're not going to help you because of that. You see how sick that is? How destructive that is? So, yeah. Alright. Where was I? And Krishna said, oh yeah, about that knowledge of truth. What are they talking about? So first of all, this whole text is full of words that have capital letters in them. It's either deification or it has some other meaning. Here, when they speak of the sons of rishis, like ourselves, who have knowledge of the truth isn't even spelled with a capital T. Now, I find that very strange. You know, the truth they are talking about here means reality. That's what it means. They know what real is and what unreal or illusionary is. Joe came up with another link in the chat room. Vedanet.com, the secret of the Soma plant. Yeah. It's a secret, alright. Alright, let's continue this. Where is that manliness of thine, those high words of thine begotten of pride, when thou must have to behold thy father bearing a dead snake? O best of all the Munis, thy father too had done nothing to deserve this treatment. And it is for this that I am particularly sorry, as if the punishment were mine. Alright, next section. In case you're listening to this on a podcast, you know, or YouTube, I talk to the people in the chat room, so you know that's why sometimes the flow of it might be gone, but I really think that the contact with the other people is kind of important, so that's why. Sauti said, being thus addressed and hearing that his sire was bearing a dead snake, the powerful Sringin burned with wrath. And looking at Krishna and speaking softly, he asked him, pray, that's with an A, why does my father bear today a dead snake? And Krishna replied, even as King Parikshit was roving for purpose of hunting, O dear one, he placed the dead snake on the shoulder of thy sire. Of thy sire. Is that where the word sir comes from? I don't know, guys. And Sringrin asked, What wrong was done to that wicked monarch by my father? O Krishna, tell me this, and witness the power of my asceticism. Yeah. Witness the power of my asceticism. Yeah. What the heck, And Krisa answered, King Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, while hunting, had wounded a fleet stag with an arrow and chased it alone. And the king lost sight of the animal in that extensive wilderness. Seeing then thy sire, he immediately accosted him. Thy sire was then observing the vow of silence. Oppressed by hunger, thirst, and labor, the prince again and again asked thy sire, sitting motionless, about the missing deer. The sage, being under the vow of silence, returned no reply. Yeah. Couldn't they have made a hand sign or something saying, I'm sorry, I can't speak. The king thereupon placed the snake on thy sire's shoulder with the end of his bow. O Shringin, thy sire engaged in devotion is in the same posture still, and the king also has gone to his capital, which is named after the elephant. Sauti continued, having heard of a dead snake placed upon his father's shoulders, the son of Rishi, his eyes reddened with anger, blazed up with rage, and possessed by anger, the puissant Rishi then cursed the king, touching water and overcome with wrath. And Shringin said, that sinful wretch of a monarch, who has placed a dead snake on the shoulders of my lean and old parent, that insulter of Brahmanas and tarnisher of the fame of Kurus, shall be taken within 7 nights, hence to the regions of Yama, that's death, the regions of Yama. By the snake Takshaka, the powerful king of serpents, stimulated thereto by the strength of my words. Hold on, guys. And Shringin said, that's sinful, that's what I just read. Sauti continued, and having thus cursed the king from anger, Shringin went to his father and saw the sage sitting in the cowpan bearing the dead snake. And seeing his parent in that plight, he was again inflamed with ire, and he shed tears of grief and addressed his sire, saying, Father. Alright, so as Vincent pointed out in the chat, sire ties to the word father. Father, having been informed of this thy disgrace at the hand of that wicked wretch, King Parikshit, I have from anger even cursed him, and that worst of Kurus has richly deserved my potent curse. 7 days hence, Takshaka, the lord of snakes, shall take the sinful king to the horrible abode of death. And the father said to the enraged son, Child, I am not pleased with thee. Ascetics should not act thus. Right? Ascetics shouldn't even become angry, let alone act on it. We live in the domain of that great king. We are protected by him righteously. In all he does, the reigning king should be like of us forgiven. Should by the like of us forgiven, not be. If thou destroy Dharma, verily Dharma will destroy thee. Right? Dharma is spelled with a capital D here. It's personified as deity. The best translation for this Sanskrit word dharma I can give you is that it ties to your original duty. This is, of course, very religious. You know, as if you as a entity aren't born free. No, you have duties, you know. If the king do not properly protect us, we fare very ill. We cannot perform our religious rites according to our desire. What does Dan say here in the chat? His view, I don't know if he means his personal view, but some view, right? Based upon more than 30 years of study of the Vedas in the original Sanskrit, as well as the related Ayurvedic literature. Yeah, Ayurvedic has to do with medicine. Is that the soma plant was not simply one plant, though there may have been one primary soma plant in certain times and places, but several plants. Sometimes a plant mixture more generally referred to the sacred usage of plants. Yeah. That would, I would tend to agree with that idea, Dan. Plants are strange. Did you guys ever see The Secret Life of Plants? You can Google that or YouTube that also. It's very interesting. Okay, where were we, guys? But protected by the righteous sovereigns. Yeah. So why are they sovereign, right? Because they are born in a specific family? Doesn't make sense. We attain immense merit, and they are entitled to a share thereof. That's also their idea of karma comes back. You know, they are born as sovereign, so they, you know, by God's will are supposed to rule over you. Do you see where this whole idea comes from? It's very, very old, guys. You know, all based on this karma idea, because you wouldn't be born in a family of kings, for instance, making you heir to the throne, thereby becoming a sovereign, right? They say, well, that's his karma. He was born in that family, so he's the boss. Does that make any sense to you guys? It doesn't to me. It's nonsense. Therefore, reigning royalty is by all means to be forgiven. Yeah, so even if they kill you, you know, the king is in his right. My God! And Parikshit, like unto his great-grandsire, protects us as a king should protect his subjects. Yeah. That penance-practicing monarch was fatigued and oppressed with hunger. Ignorant of my vow of silence, he did this. Yeah. So he couldn't, like, see that. He didn't know that there were vows of silence. It didn't come up in his feeble mind to think that he might be in a vow. That's the reason why you can't take these stories literally. You see? A kingless country always suffers from evils. Yeah. The king punishes offenders, and fear of punishment conducteth to peace. Really? And people do their duties and perform their rites undisturbed. Because of fear, right? That's a fallacy. It's one of the logical fallacies. Do this or I'll hit you with a stick. Yeah, that's no reason. The king establishes religion, established the kingdom of heaven. He really does, huh? The king protects sacrifices from disturbance, really. You know, you can only be at one place, and there are sacrifices going on all over the place. And sacrifices to please the gods. Yeah, like they have to be pleased. They can't do that themselves, these gods. They can't have a good time on their own. They need humans to please them. Does that make any sense? Not to me. The gods cause rain. No, they don't. It's a simple scientific explanation for why it rains. It doesn't have anything to do with gods. And rain produces grains. No, it doesn't. The earth produces grains. It needs water, you know, so rain helps. But it's not the rain that produces grains. And herbs, which are always useful to man. Yeah, that is one thing that I think of as a clue, alright? Me, as a philosopher, I try to figure out what's going on here. You know, why is there a earth and living beings here in the first place? Right? And then you find that there are all kinds of plants and herbs which are useful to man. Not only man, there's also other animals that know exactly which plants to use if they feel bad or if they've eaten something wrong. There's a link there, you see, between plants and animals. You know, why is that? There's so many of them that it can't be ruled out as a coincidence anymore, you see? Manu says, a ruler of the destinies of men is equal in dignity to 10 Veda-studying priests. Fatigued and oppressed with hunger, that penance-practicing prince has done this through ignorance of my vow. Yeah. Why, then, hast thou rashly done this unrighteous action through childishness? O son, in no way does the king deserve a curse from us. Alright. Next section. I say next section. Ashtika Parva. But it's almost top of the hour. So why don't we do a little music? And we'll come back at the other side of this hour. Welcome Dal, who has entered the chat. Jax Rocks. What's up, buddy? Good to see you here. And One Anon has entered or re-entered the chat. Welcome everybody. Hecti. And Joe Friday. What's up, guys? How you doing? If you want to join me on the radio, you can do so. You don't have to talk about anything I talk about. The topic is free. You can talk about anything you like. Contact me at Skype, Solvinur, Solvinur, and I'll get you on the air. But for now, we're going to go do a little poker face. And we'll come back at the other side of the hour. Alright? Here we go.
Thank you. Last song of the night, Survive. We got Mad Eye, Front to Enemy, and Art Larson to wrap up the night for day 3 of Freedom Palooza. So stick around and we're going to get the fire going again. Last night for camping out. Thank you so much. God bless us for the 3 days of beautiful sun. A little bit too oppressive, but thank you for the daylight.
Thank you, each and every one of you, for getting involved in your lives.
We love you, man.
Thank you.
from spoon in mouth. I sing every step of the way. You and no God pain and give you away.
That was Poker Face at Freedom Palooza in 2012. Welcome back, everybody. It's 5 p.m. in the Netherlands, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. And we're going to get back into the Mahabharata. Ashtika Parva. Sauti said, yeah, I got my coffee. Gonna need to roll a cigarette here. Sauti said, and Sringrin then replied to his father, after being told that he shouldn't have cursed the king, whether this be an act of rashness, O father, or an improper act that I have done, Whether thou likest it or not, the word spoken by me shall never be in vain. O Father, I tell thee, a curse can never be otherwise. I have spoken a lie, even in jest. He has spoken a lie? What's that? What's going on here? And Samika said, yeah, Jax, roll a ciggy. And Samika said, Dear child, I know that thou art of great prowess and truthful in speech. Thou hast never spoken falsehood before, so that thy curse shall never be falsified. Huh. A falsified curse. Does that even exist? The son, even when he attains to age, should yet be always counseled by the father. Yeah. No, don't ever grow up yourself, right? So that crowned with good qualities he may acquire great renown. Alright, hold on guys, I need to redo some of the pages here so I can follow the chat normally. If you have any questions in the chat, just type it in capital letters so it springs out to me more easily. Alright. This is okay. Where were we? As a child as thou art, how much more dost thou stand in need of counsel? Yeah. He can do a curse, you know. He knows how to do curses, but he's still a child. Thou art ever engaged in ascetic penances. You know, why would you teach a child how to do curses, right? The wrath of even the illustrious ones possessing the 6 attributes increases greatly. O thou foremost of ordinance observing persons, seeing that thou art my son and a minor too, and beholding also thy rashness, I see that I must counsel thee. Live thou, O son, inclined to peace and eating fruits and roots of the forest. Kill this thy anger, and destroy not the fruit of thy ascetic acts in this way. Wrath surely decreases the virtue that ascetics acquire with great pains. And then, for those deprived of virtue, the blessed state exists not. Peacefulness ever gives success to forgiving ascetics. Therefore, becoming forgiving in thy temper and conquering thy passions, should thou always live. By forgiveness shalt thou obtain worlds that are beyond the reach of Brahma himself. Huh. Those are, that's strange, right? Worlds beyond the reach of Brahman himself, who is the creator of the universe? Well, not exactly the creator of the universe, he is the creator of everything that is in the universe. So when they are talking about worlds beyond the reach of Brahman himself, they are talking about non-material worlds. Having adopted peacefulness myself, and with a desire also for doing good as much as lies in my power, I must do something, even must I send to that king, telling him, O monarch, thou hast been cursed by my son of tender years and undeveloped intellect in wrath at seeing thy act of disrespect towards myself. Yeah. Sauti continued. And that great ascetic, observer of vows, moved by kindness, sent with proper instructions a disciple of his to King Parikshit. And he sent his disciple Gaurmukha, of good manners, and engaged also in ascetic penances, instructing him to first inquire about the welfare of the king and then to communicate the real message. And that disciple soon approached the monarch, the head of the Kuru race. Yeah. Kuru race. Again, I'm thinking that's a family. Strange. And he entered the king's palace, having first sent notice of his arrival through the servant in attendance at the gate. And the twice-born Gaurmukha was duly worshipped by the monarch, and after resting for a while he detailed fully to the king, in the presence of his ministers, the words of Samika, of cruel import, exactly as he had been instructed. And Gaurmukha said, O King of Kings, there is a rishi, Samika by name, of virtuous soul, his passion under control, peaceful and giving up to hard ascetic devotions, living in thy dominions. By thee, O tiger among men, was placed upon the shoulder of that rishi, observing at present the vow of silence, a dead snake, with the end of thy bow. He himself forgave thee that act, but his son could not. And by the latter hast thou been today cursed. O King of Kings, without the knowledge of his father, to the effect that within 7 nights hence shall the snake Takshaka cause thy death. And Samika repeatedly asked his son to save thee, but there is none to falsify his son's curse. That's falsifying a curse, making it not work. And because he has been unable to pacify his son possessed by anger, therefore I have been sent to thee, O king, for thy good. And that king of the Kuru race, himself engaged in ascetic practices, having heard these cruel words and recollecting his own sinful act, became exceedingly sorry. And the king, learning that the foremost of rishis in the forest had been observing the vow of silence, was doubly afflicted with sorrow, and seeing the kindness of the rishi Samika, and considering his own sinful act towards him, the king became very repentant. This is a word that I learned from Alan Watt. If you have never listened to Alan Watt, and I'm not talking about Alan Watts, you should never ever listen to that guy. But Alan Watt told me something about this word repentant. You know, it has a very Christian air about it, right? And this has to do with control. I'm trying to get back where was I? Here, okay. So why does the word repentant have to do with control? Because he took apart the word. It's re, which means again, and pent. And a pent is where the sheep are held. You see? So you're not supposed to get, quote unquote, out of line. Also one of his words, Alan Watt. And you know, you're not supposed to go out of line. You're supposed to go back in the pent. Or repent. And another thing that bugs me about this English language, it ends in "and", right? Like an ant colony, those small animals. There is also the word, for instance, servant, serve, and, you see? Or combatant, combat, and, you see? I think that's a way of mocking us. Alright? Continuing, and the king, looking very like a god, did not grieve so much for hearing of his death as for having done this act to the rishi. The pen, Jax. It also ties to the word pin. To pin somebody to the ground, for instance, right? It means he can't move. It's the same idea. And then the king sent away Garmuka, saying, "Let the worshipful one, Samika, be gracious to me." And when Garmuka had gone away, the king, in great anxiety, without loss of time, consulted his ministers. Bugs you too, Iota? That and stuff? Yeah, there's many, many more words than I just gave you 2 examples of, you know? Yeah. That end in and just seem to mock us, you know? And having consulted them, the king, himself wise in counsel, caused the mansion to be erected upon one solitary column. Alright, one solitary column. Sounds like a man here. A stone. You know? Think of 2001, that movie. It was well guarded day and night, and for its protection were placed there physicians and medicines, and brahmanas skilled in mantras all around. And the monarch, protected on all sides, discharged his kingly duties from that place, surrounded by his virtuous ministers. Yeah. We have that word in Dutch also. Minister. In Dutch it is minister. If you take that word apart, especially in Dutch, in English it's almost, you get mini-star. Right? If you take the word in Dutch, it's exactly that. It's mini-star. You know, how the stars rule over us, right? Ministers are mini-stars. And no one could approach, because the king is the sun with S-U-N, right? And no one could approach that best of kings there. The air even could not go there, being prevented from entering. The air could not go there, so how do you breathe? And when the 7th day had arrived, the best of brahmanas, excuse me, need to light up a cigarette. And when the 7th day had arrived, the best of brahmanas that learned Kasyapa was coming towards the king's residence, desirous of treating the king after the snake bite. He had heard all that had taken place, that Takshaka, that first of snakes, would send the best of the monarchs to the presence of Yama. Right, that's death. Hey, Benjovi, what's up, buddy? How you doing? And he thought, I would cure that monarch after he is bit by that first of snakes. By that I may have wealth and may acquire virtue also. So is that a reason why he's doing it? So that he has wealth and virtue? It's not to save the king, but it's for his own good? What's going on? Yeah, Ben, that's a good question. Yeah. Why do people smoke, right? It's not good for you. Yep. But that prince of snakes, Takshaka, in the form of an old brahmana, saw Kasyapa approaching on his way. His heart set upon curing the king, and the prince of snakes then spoke unto that bull among Munis, Kasyapa, saying, Whither dost thou go with such speed? What besides is that business upon which thou art intent? And Kasyapa, thus addressed, replied, Takshaka, by his poison, will today burn King Parikshit of the Kuru race, that oppressor of all enemies. Yeah. Which enemies are you talking about? I go with speed, O amiable one, to cure, without loss of time, the king of immeasurable prowess, the sole representative of the Pandava race. The sole representative of the Pandava race? You know, if he's the sole one, then it's extinct. Yeah, they're never ever going to be a Pandava race again. And again, I was taught that it's a family, Pandavas. Now it's a race. It does make more sense to look at it as a race. Just as in the Bible, it makes more sense to look at Adam and Eve as groups of people instead of just two people. After he is bit by the same Takshaka, like to Agni himself in energy. And Takshaka answered, I am that Takshaka, O Brahmana, who shall burn that lord of the earth. Stop, for thou art unable to cure one bit by me. And Kasyapa rejoined, I am sure that, possessed that I am of the power of learning, going thither I shall cure that monarch bit by thee. Oh, that's not so nice to hear, JJ. Edgar Steele died in prison the other day. Rest in peace. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, JJ. Okay, next section. Sauti said, and Takshaka after this answered, if indeed thou art able to cure any creature bitten by me, then, O Kasyapa, revive thou this tree bit by me. O best of Brahmanas, I burn this banyan in thy sight. Try thy best and show me that skill in mantras of which thou hast spoken. And Kasyapa said, if thou art so minded, bite thou then, O king of snakes, this tree. O snake, I shall revive it, though bit by thee. Sauti continued, the king of snakes, thus addressed by the illustrious Kasyapa, bit then that banyan tree, and the tree, bit by the illustrious snake and penetrated by the poison of the serpent, blazed up all around. And having burned the banyan so, the snake then spoke again unto Kasyapa, saying, O first of morning degreaser, how you doing? O first of Brahmanas, try thy best and revive this lord of the forest. Lord of the forest. The tree is now the lord of the forest? What is it with this banyan tree? Sauti continued, the tree was reduced to ashes by the poison of that king of snakes. But, taking up those ashes, Kasyapa spoke these words, O king of snakes, behold the power of my knowledge as applied to this lord of the forest. O snake, under thy very nose I shall revive it. And then the best of Brahmanas, the illustrious and learned Kasyapa, revived by his vidya, that's Vidya, that tree which had been reduced to a heap of ashes. Alright, Vidya, let's look that up, what that is. Copy that. Paste that in the Google. Vidya sounds like Veda, right? Vidya. Vidya. It's also slang, apparently. Correct knowledge is what it means. See? That's what I said. Sounds like Veda. Veda means knowledge. So Vidya means correct knowledge. Alright? We know that. Let's get back. And first he created the sprout, then he furnished it with 2 leaves, and then he made the stem, and then the branches, and then the full-grown tree with leaves and all. And Takshaka, seeing the tree revived by the illustrious Kasyapa, said unto him, Is it not wonderful indeed that thou shouldst destroy my poison, or that of any one else like myself? Really? It just sounds to me like he planted the seed in the ground, O thou whose wealth is asceticism, desirous of what wealth goest thou thither? The reward thou hopest to have from that best of monarchs, even I will give thee, however difficult it may be to obtain. Decked with fame as thou art, thy success may be doubtful on that king affected by a Brahmana's curse, and whose span of life itself has been shortened. In that case, this blazing flame of thine that has overspread the 3 worlds will disappear like the sun, spelled with a capital S, when deprived of his splendor on the occasion of the eclipse. Kasyapa said, I go there for wealth. Give it unto me, O snake, so that, taking thy gold, I may return. Takshaka replied, O best of regenerate ones, even I will give 3 more than what thou expectest from the king, therefore do not go. Sauti continued, That best of Brahmanas, Kasyapa of great prowess and intelligence, hearing those words of Takshaka, sat in yoga meditation over the king. And that foremost of Munis, Kasyapa, of great prowess and gifted with spiritual knowledge, ascertaining that the period of life of that king of the Pandava race had really run out, returned, receiving from Takshaka as much wealth as he desired. Foremost of Brahmanas, and then desiring so much wealth, that doesn't go together, That's something for Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Brahmanas are not supposed to want any wealth. And upon the illustrious Kasyapa's retracting his steps, Takshaka at the proper time speedily entered the city of Hastinapura. And on his way he heard that the king was living very cautiously, protected by means of poison-neutralizing mantras and medicines. Sauti continued. The snake thereupon reflected thus, The monarch must be deceived by me with power of illusion, but what must be the means? Then Takshaka sent to the king some snakes in the guise of ascetics, taking with them fruits, kusa grass and water as presents. And Takshaka, addressing them, said, Go ye all to the king on the pretext of pressing business, without any sign of impatience, as if to make the monarch only accept the fruits and flowers and water that ye shall carry as presents unto him. Alright. Sauti continued, Those snakes, thus commanded by Takshaka, acted accordingly, and they took to the king kusa grass, water and fruits. And that foremost of kings of great prowess accepted these offerings, and after their business was finished, he said upon them, Retire. Then after those snakes disguised as ascetics had gone away, the king addressed his ministers and friends, saying, Eat ye with me all these fruits of excellent taste brought by the ascetics. Impelled by fate, why is fate here spelled with a capital F? And the words of the Rishi, the king, with his ministers, felt the desire of eating those fruits. The particular fruit within which Takshaka had entered was taken by the king himself for eating. And when he was eating it, there appeared, O Sanaka, an ugly insect out of it, of shape scarcely discernible, of eyes black, and of coppery color. And that foremost of kings, taking that insect, addressed his counselor, saying, "The sun is setting. Today I have no more tear from poison." No more tear, it's probably supposed to mean fear. "Therefore let this insect become Takshaka and bite me, so that my sinful act may be expiated and the words of the ascetic rendered true." And those counselors also, impelled by fate, approved of that speech. And then the monarch smiled, losing his senses, his hour having come, and he quickly placed that insect on his neck. And as the king was smiling, Takshaka, who had in the form of that insect come out of the fruit that had been offered to the king, coiled himself around the neck of the monarch, and quickly coiling round the king's neck and uttering a tremendous roar, Takshaka, the lord of snakes, bit the protector of the earth. Alright, Ben, Jovi, take care, buddy. Next section. Sauti said, "Then the counselors, beholding the king in the coils of Takshaka, became pale with fear and wept in exceeding grief. And hearing the roar of Takshaka, the ministers all fled." And as they were flying away, probably fleeing away, in great grief, they saw Takshaka, the king of snakes, that wonderful serpent, coursing through the blue sky like a streak of hue of the lotus, and looking very much like the vermilion-colored line on a woman's crown, dividing the dark masses of her hair in the middle. And the mansions in which the king was living blazed up with Takshaka's poison. And the king's counselors, on beholding it, fled away in all directions, and the king himself fell down, as if struck by lightning. And when the king was laid down by Takshaka's poison, his counselors, with the royal priest, a holy Brahmana, performed all his last rites. All the citizens, assembling together, made the minor son of the deceased monarch their king. And the people called their new king, the slayer of all enemies, the hero of the Kuru race, by name of Janamejaya, and that best of monarchs, Janamejaya, though a child, was wise in mind. And with his counselors and priests, the eldest son Parikshita, that bull amongst the Kurus, ruled the kingdom like his heroic great-grandfather Yudhishthira. Oh, so this is all taking place after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, guys. This sounds like 4,800 years ago, or 4,900 years ago or so. And the ministers of the youthful monarch, beholding that he could now keep his enemies in check, went to Suvarnavarman, the king of Kasi, and asked him his daughter Vapushtama for a bride. And the king of Kasi, after due inquiries, bestowed with ordained rites his daughter Vapushtama on that mighty hero of the Kuru race. And the latter, receiving his bride, became exceedingly glad, and he gave not his heart at any time to any other woman, and gifted with great energy, he wandered in pursuit of pleasure, with a cheerful heart, on expanses of water and amid woods and flowery fields. And that first of monarchs passed his time in pleasure as Pururavas of old did, on receiving the celestial damsel Urvasi. Herself fairest of the fair, the damsel Vapustama too, devoted to her lord and celebrated for her beauty, having gained a desirable husband, pleased him by the excess of her affliction during the period he spent in pursuit of pleasure. Yeah. Here I also taste something, which I've talked to you guys about, the Muslims, how they treat their women. It's really barbaric. It really is. Meanwhile, the great ascetic Jaratkaru wandered over the whole earth, making the place where evening fell his home for the night. And gifted with ascetic power, he roamed, practicing various vows difficult to be practiced by the immature, and bathing also in various sacred waters. And the Muni had air alone for his food, and was free from desire of worldly enjoyment. And he became daily emaciated, what the heck is that? And grew lean-fleshed. And one day he saw the spirits of his ancestors, heads down in a hole by a cord of Virana roots, having only one thread entire. Sounds like a story we read before, right? That symbolic story. And that even single thread was being gradually eaten away by a large rat dwelling in that hole. Right? So the rat could be seen as time eating away at your lifespan. And that even single, that's what I just read. And the Pitris in the hole were without food, emaciated, pitiable, and eagerly desirous of salvation. And Jaratkaru, approaching the pitiable one, himself in humble guise, asked them, "Who are ye hanging by this cord of Virana roots?" The single weak root that is still left in this cord of Virana roots, already eaten away by the rat, dwelling in this hole, is itself being gradually eaten away by the same rat with his sharp teeth. The little that remains of that single thread will soon be cut away. It is clear you shall then have to fall down into this pit with faces downwards. Seeing you with faces downwards and overtaken by this great calamity, my pity has been excited. What good can I do to you? Tell me quickly whether this calamity can be averted by a fourth, a third, or even by the sacrifice of a half of this my asceticism. Oh, relieve yourselves even with the whole of my asceticism. I consent to all this. Do as ye please. The Pitri said, Venerable Brahmacharin, thou desirest to relieve us, but, O foremost of Brahmanas, thou canst not dispel our affliction by thy asceticism. O child, O first of speakers, we too have the fruits of our asceticism, but, O Brahmana, it is for the loss of children that we are falling down into this unholy hell. Did we, not read this a while ago? No, it's being repeated somehow. The grandsire himself has said that a son is a great merit. As we are about to be cast in this hole, our ideas are no longer clear. Therefore, O child, we know thee not, although thy manhood is well known on earth. So it's well known on earth, but they don't know. What's that all about? Venerable, thou art of good fortune. Thou, who thus from kindness grieves for us, worthy of pity and greatly afflicted. O Brahmana, listen who we are. We are rishis of the Yajavara sect of religious vows. And, Muni, from loss of children we have fallen down from a sacred region. Yeah, no offspring, right? Our severe penances have not been destroyed. We have a thread yet, but we have only one thread now. It matters little, however, whether he is or is not. What do you mean, whether he is or is not? No clue. Unfortunate as we are, we have a thread in one known as Jarat Karu. Alright, so the threads are like suns, apparently. The unfortunate one has gone through the Vedas and their branches and is practicing asceticism alone. He being one with soul under complete control. Yeah. That's also something that's contradictory. At least it's contradictory to one branch of the philosophical ideas about what soul is. Alright? A soul in this material world can never be under control, because it is of a different energy. Alright? A soul cannot be contaminated by any material energies. Alright? So there's no need to keep it under control. You can't even try. There's no way you can do it, because of the nature of the soul's energy, of what it's made of. Alright, continuing. Desire set high, observant of vows, deeply engaged in ascetic penances, and free from greed for the merits of asceticism, we have been reduced to this deplorable state. He has no wife, no son, no relatives. Therefore, do we hang in this hole, our consciousness lost? Alright, so how do you even speak when you've lost consciousness? Like men having none to take care of them. If thou meetest him, O tell him from thy kindness to ourselves. Thy Pitris in sorrow are hanging with faces downwards in a hole. Holy one, take a wife and beget children. O thou of ascetic wealth, thou art, O amiable one, the only thread that remains in the line of thy ancestors. O Brahmana, the cord of the Virana roots that thou seest we are hanging by is the cord representing our multiplied race. And, O Brahmana, these threads of the cords of Virana roots that thou seest are eaten away, are ourselves who have been eaten up by time. See? This root thou seest has been half eaten, by which we are hanging in this hole, is he that has adopted asceticism alone. The rat that thou beholdst is time of infinite strength, and time is gradually weakening the wretch Jaratkaru tempted in ascetic penances tempted by his merits. Therefore, but one thing, tempted by his merits thereof, but wanting in prudence and heart. O excellent one, his asceticism cannot save us. Behold, our roots being torn, cast down from higher regions, deprived of consciousness by time. We are going downwards like sinful wretches, and upon our going down into this hole with all our relatives eaten up by time, even he shall sink with us into hell. Alright. Why into hell? I mean, aren't you ascetics supposed to be without sin? O child, whether it is asceticism or sacrifice or whatever else there be of very holy acts, everything is inferior. These cannot count with a sum. O child, having seen all this, speak unto that Jaratkaru of ascetic wealth. Thou shouldst tell him in detail everything you have seen. And, O Brahmana, from thy kindness towards us, thou should tell them all that would induce him to take a wife and beget children amongst his friends or of our own race, who art thou, O excellent one, that thus grievest for us like a friend. We wish to hear who thou art that stays here. Next section. Sauti said, Jaratkaru, hearing all this, became excessively dejected, and from sorrow he spoke unto those Pitris in words obstructed by tears. And Jaratkaru said, Ye are even my fathers and and grandfathers gone before. Therefore tell me what I must do for your welfare. I am that sinful son of yours, Jaratkaru. Punish me for my sinful deeds, a wretch that I am. The Pitris replied, saying, O son, by good luck hast thou arrived at this spot in course of thy rambles. O Brahmana, why hast thou not taken a wife? Jaratkaru said, Ye Pitris, this desire has always existed in my heart that I would, with vital seed drawn up, carry this body to the other world. My mind has been possessed with the idea that I would not take a wife. But ye grandsires, having seen you hanging like birds, I have diverted my mind from the brahmacharya mode of life. I will truly do what you like. I will certainly marry if ever I meet a maiden of my own name. I shall accept her who, bestowing herself of her own accord, will be as alms unto me. Again, you taste the dreadful flavor of how they treat women, right? And whom I shall not have to maintain. Yeah, not even maintain. I shall marry if I get such a one, otherwise I shall not. This is the truth, ye grandsires, and the offspring that will be begot upon her shall be your salvation. And ye Pitris of mine, ye shall live forever in blessedness and without fears. Live forever? Sauti continued, the Muni, having said unto the Pitris, wandered over the earth again, and, O Sonauka, being old, he obtained no wife, and he grieved much that he was not successful, but directed as before by his ancestors, he continued the search, and going into the forest, he wept loudly in great grief. And having gone into the forest, the wise one, moved by the desire of doing good to his ancestors, said, I will ask for a bride, distinctly repeating these words thrice. And he said, whatever creatures are here, mobile and immobile, so whoever there be that are invisible, O hear my words. My ancestors, afflicted with grief, have directed me that am engaged in the most severe penances, saying, marry thou for the acquisition of a son. And ye, being directed by my ancestors, I am roaming in poverty and sorrow over the wide world for wedding a maiden that I may obtain as alms. Let that creature among those I have addressed, who has a daughter, bestow upon me that who has a daughter, bestow on me that am roaming far and near, such a bride as is of same name with me, to be bestowed on me as alms, and whom besides I shall not maintain. O bestow on me. It's very strange, right? Then those snakes that had been set upon Jaradkuru's track, ascertaining his inclination, gave information to Vasuki, and the king of the snakes, hearing their words, took with him that maiden decked with ornaments, and went into the forest unto that rishi. And, O Brahmana, Vasuki, the king of snakes, having gone there, offered the maiden as alms unto that high-souled rishi. But the rishi did not at once accept her, and the rishi, thinking her not to be of the same name with himself, and seeing that the question of her maintenance also was unsettled, reflected for a few moments, hesitating to accept her. And then, O son of Brigu, he asked Vasuki the maiden's name, and also said unto him, I shall not maintain her. End of that section. Moving on to next. Sauti said, Then Vasuki spoke unto the rishi Jaradkaru these words, O best of Brahmanas, this maiden is of the same name with thee. She is my sister and has ascetic merit. I will maintain thy wife, accept her. O thou of ascetic wealth, I shall protect her with all my ability. And, O foremost of the great Munis, she has been reared by me for thee. And the rishi replied, This is agreed between us that I shall not maintain her, and she shall not do aught that I do not like. If she do, I leave her. Sauti continued, When the snake had promised, saying, I shall maintain my sister, Jaradkaru then went to the snake's house. Then that first of mantra-knowing Brahmanas, observing rigid vows, that virtuous and veteran ascetic, took her hand, presented to him according to Shastric rites. Shastric comes from the word Shastra. And taking his bride with him, adored by the great rishi, he entered the delightful chamber set apart for him by the king of snakes. Yeah. And in that chamber was a bedstead covered with very valuable coverlets. And Jaradkaru lived there with his wife. And the excellent rishi made an agreement with his wife, saying, Nothing must ever be done or said by thee that is against my liking, and in case of thy doing any such thing, I will leave thee and no longer continue to stay in thy house. Bear in mind these words that have been spoken by me. And then the sister of the king of the snakes, in great anxiety and grieving exceedingly, spoke unto him, saying, Be it so. And moved by the desire of doing good to her relatives, that damsel of unsullied reputation began to attend upon her lord with the wakefulness of a dog, the timidity of a deer, and knowledge of signs possessed by the crow. Knowledge of signs possessed by the crow. Sounds like black magic, doesn't it? And one day, after the menstrual period, the sister of Vasuki, having purified herself by a bath according to custom, approached her lord, the great Muni, and thereupon she conceived, and the embryo was like unto a flame of fire, possessed of great energy, and resplendent as fire itself, and it grew like the moon in the bright fortnight. And one day, within a short time, Jaradkaru of great fame, placing his head on the lap of his wife, slept, looking like one fatigued. And as he was sleeping, the sun entered his chambers in the western mountain, and was about to set. And, O Brahmana, it was the day and not. Let me try this again. And, O Brahmana, as the day was fading, she, the excellent sister of Vasuki, became thoughtful, fearing the loss of her husband's virtue. And she thought, what shall I do now? Shall I wake my husband or not? He is exacting and punctilious in his religious duties. Yeah, they're supposed to do something when the sun set, but now he's apparently sleeping, so she's asking herself, what do I do, right? How can I act as not to offend him? The alternatives are his anger and the loss of virtue of a virtuous man. The loss of virtue, I ween, is the greater of the two evils. Again, if I wake him, he will be angry, but if twilight passes away without his prayers being said, he shall certainly sustain loss of virtue. And having resolved at last the sweet speech, Jaratkaru, the sister of Vasuki, spoke softly unto the resplendent with ascetic penances, and lying prostrate like a flame of fire. O thou of great fortune, awake, the sun is setting. O thou of rigid vows, O illustrious one, do your evening prayers after purifying yourself with water and uttering the name of Vishnu. The time for the evening sacrifice has come. Twilight, O Lord, is even now gently covering the western side. The illustrious Jaratguru of great ascetic merit, thus addressed, spoke unto his wife these words. His upper lip quivering in anger. O amiable one of the Naga race, thou hast insulted me. I shall no longer abide with thee, but shall go where I came from. O thou of beautiful thighs, I believe in my heart that the sun has no power to set in the usual time, if I am asleep. So when he is asleep, the sun is not supposed to set, or what? An insulted person should never live where he has met with the insult. Far less should I, a virtuous person, or those that are like me. Alright guys, we'll continue this sometime next week. And I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody in the chat before the music kicks in. Thanks for listening, guys. 3701, Coopers, Acti, Jax, JJ, Joe, Vincent, Iota, Degreasar. Thanks for listening. I'll be back next week. We'll pick this up. We are at page 100. And we'll see what we get from there. He sounds like a very arrogant person, doesn't he? Well, you woke me, so now I'm angry, and the sun is not supposed to set, blah, blah, blah. Not very nice, is it? So, thanks a lot for listening. I'll be back next week to continue with this, and maybe you guys want to call in next week, that's okay. So that's it for me this week. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind